In today's edition of this series, we'll be joined by Naghma Mulla, CEO of EdelGive Foundation, the philanthropic initiative of Edelweiss Group, one of India's leading diversified financial services group. Naghma has been in a leadership role in the foundation since 2012, strengthening its core principles of collaborative philanthropy. She has been instrumental in strategically driving the vision of social transformation by steering the holistic development of small to medium sized grassroots NGOs spread across the span of India. Today, EdelGive has built two successful collaboratives, one called the Collaborators for Transforming Education in partnership with the government of Maharashtra, and the second one, the Coalition of Women's Empowerment in partnership with Ford Foundation and Chintu Gudia Foundation. Both created and nurtured by Naghma. Naghma is also a member of core committee of the India Climate Collaborative. Naghma is a chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and has earned a Masters of Commerce degree from the University of Pune. Welcome, Naghma. We are glad to have you with us today for this conversation of Change series. Super excited to have you with us during this very, very difficult time we are facing as a country right now.
Thank you so much, Satyam. Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Great. Naghma, I would like to start with that the last 1 year has seen big challenges that come up in the social impact sector, starting last April 2020. What are some of the big setbacks you foresee for the social sector, and how do you think we can collectively overcome those?
Yes, that's probably now sitting where we are is an understatement in all possible forms. It has been the last year, and where we are standing right now has been a disruptor for all forms of life. But for the social impact sector, it has been a double whammy, really. Same time last year, Satyam, we all watched overnight how the development sector transformed itself into doing whatever it takes to ensure relief and support reach the last mile. I think they became the cushion between the government and the most marginalized, ensuring outreach, relief of all kinds reached. And we also saw generous, support coming from all kinds of philanthropists. But what happened is what, was not unusual, but, just tragic, which is that all our attempt and all our attention is focused on the relief as it should be. But we as a collective society sometimes miss that the structures have to be protected as well. Last year was an overwhelming generosity for relief, but less funding for programs, less funding for teams that work in social sector, less funding for any kind of relief within the systems that support social development sector. And I think that we had hoped that it will take at least 6-8 months of being low key and reviving oneself. But here comes the second year, and we can see how teams are struggling to keep up, especially with the medical impact of what this has happened. Right now, everyone from large organizations to small organizations are suffering with COVID impact within their own teams, medical issues that nobody's going to insure, layoffs that no funder is willing to support. It is, in that sense, something that has weakened the development sector immensely. So, but if I have to, summarize that, I think what has happened is we have seen, we've seen the weakening of the structures within social impact sector. Pillars that help us like human resources, like different facilities like technology and financial management and fundraising taking a deep beating because funders have moved to the immediate and urgent, and less amount is available for strategic and long term. I think that has been, it will have repercussions for the years to come, which is very sad.
No, great point, Naghma. And I think it's amazing to see how much every citizen cares about relief work when things like this happen. And it's also very unfortunate to see that how quickly that phases out. Because every time the pandemic wave is what we say, the peak has come and the peak is going down. I think the giving goes up when the peak goes up around relief, and when the peak goes down, the giving goes down. And this sector does a lot more than COVID relief, which is something for everyone to.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to my second question, how do you see the role of civil society evolving in the post-pandemic era?
See, civil society was always...
What changes must happen in order to reimagine the way?
Yes. See, civil society...
Sorry. Go on.
No. Civil society, from where I see, has two very critical roles to play, and there must be many more. But from where I sit, there's two elements of what civil society does. One is to ensure that the last mile is reached, that no one is left behind, and the larger purposes of why we function. But there's a critical role that I think we miss, which is being the gatekeepers of accountability. Accountabilities of those we elect, or the departments that work for the public, and also of the public and how they operate in the whole civil society. I think distress comes, what has happened because of COVID is systems that were weak have broken, systems that were weak have weakened even further. But and what has survived are those systems that have been time tested now. Distress hua hai lekin khatam nahi hua hai. But the thing with disaster is, or this kind of impact, it breaks open what always was weak, right? So as we grow back, we're going to have to become vigilant citizens. We are going to have to become people who are, of course, dealing with the here and now, but also have a keen eye on accountability, on looking at systems that should provide for us and why they're not providing for us. Philanthropy is an enabler. Philanthropy cannot resolve problems, and when we put so much responsibility on philanthropy, we are doing a disservice to how life must operate in the ecosystem. Philanthropy and is always like the brilliant thing to have that pushes the envelope, that funds ecosystems and funds acceleration and funds enablement. But philanthropy in itself is not a problem solver, and we can't put that responsibility on philanthropy.
No, great point, Naghma, around philanthropy being the bridge, and and how actually it's surprising, at least in the Indian context, that one level everyone expects philanthropy to act at its maximum, like 1,000%, and support structures around it are completely missing. And none of the only ray of light, or I would not even call it a ray of light. The only thing sometimes we hear from the system is system decides to postpone certain things by X number of months. We don't hear that.
But what is system? No? System is us, right? System is not invisible. System is all of us. And when we say the system is not working, we have a responsibility to see what are we doing in this whole place. And COVID has shown that, see, we were in that sense thinking that there's a larger system working for us as it should. But look at what happens when distress of this magnitude comes. All the possible evidence shows that this is probably the first of many that will follow. How are we as a society, and within the society, how is the social development sector going to remodel itself or upgrade itself to be able to meet the very compelling demands that go forward? Government, civil society, social, and the communities have to go hand in hand in this. This is not going to be one. Even governments cannot solve for this without public participation. And that is why we have to figure out how do we participate, with the responsibility that we hold.
No, absolutely, Naghma. Completely agree with you. It's everyone's role, and everyone needs to play that role. It's just like sometimes you think that you are given that due recognition to play that role, even as civil society. They are expectations, but definitely not due weightages that are given to, let's just say, this sector. Last year, I think I read somewhere in Times of India that this sector has 7 million people working in the social development, which is probably it's not that. In the beginning of if 50% of the people sector, that's 3.5 million livelihoods who were responsible for I don't know how many millions and millions of more people. But yes, I completely understand and agree with your point of like how we are the system, and we need to think from that lens rather than thinking of some system that needs to act on its own. With that, Naghma, you have done a lot of work in areas of gender and entrepreneurship. Given the pandemic has shown sharp focus on the role of gender stereotypes and biases and the disproportionate incomes and even increased violence against women, What do you think can be done to overcome some of these setbacks?
See, again, violence was always there. In fact, in the pandemic, it went hidden. Shuru ke kuch mahino mein to nobody even spoke about the violence that is going on behind closed doors. But I'm glad that discourse, the discourse, the conversation is back. But yes, if we are looking at really reviewing and seeing how we can prepare for the future, I think two things stand out. Whether across sectors they stand out, but it becomes very, very important in case of gender, which is we have to place the mic where it belongs, and we have to start listening to the requirements of those who suffer. What works for them, what laws work for them, and the designing of solutions has to be has to be crafted with them in mind. Okay. For example, there are some brilliantly progressive laws. The Domestic Violence Act is extremely good. POSH is a very progressive action. But when we implement it from top down. We have to make implementation of this inclusive, understood by the people. And unless we make women an active participant of our solutions instead of somebody who we are working for, or we make them beneficiaries of our work, we will not be able to move from where we are today. So I feel while we all come from a good place of concern, our design itself needs to include women as a co-designer of the solution instead of someone who receives benefits. Like हम decide करते हैं कि महिलाओं को आप tailoring करा दो तो वो it works for them. We decide for them, and we have to stop that. And second thing is men become a very, very important tool. I think men are incredible agents of improvement and change when co-opted in movements of these kinds. So co-opting of men becomes very important, because really it takes two to make this happen, and we cannot do this without, again, active participants of men. Why I said women first is that in the active participation of men, we have to remember the mic belongs to the woman. It's a fine differentiation, but we have to consider this differentiation as we design for the future. And our work with Udyam Stri, we've launched a recent campaign which really talks about women in workforce. And why women who are starting small businesses, they face multiple impediments at all places. And we've kind of actually had a landscape report out of it. It's very telling that agar 2021 mein bhi you have problems that we should have left behind in the last century, then there's something, then we haven't placed the problem where it belongs, and we've not designed keeping them in mind. And I think it's about time, and all our work in EdelGive is kind of structured to look at it from that lens.
Completely agree with you, and this resonates a lot. And also the fact that you said that the men have to play a significant role in this discourse. It's not just about women, and women need to be. I think this is one conversation which has probably not changed. God only knows since how long.
Yeah.
It definitely pops up once in a while, but need to be sustained. Good to hear about the landscaping report, and what the insights that is throwing about women entrepreneurship and the challenges one would face while trying to set something up in a country like India, because the definition of ease of doing business again only exists at a certain class and not anything that translates into ground reality. All know even till date in 2021. Naghma, in the last at least 1 year, or from the time the pandemic wave one started in the COVID era, we have seen a lot of collaborations. I mean, a lot of people talked about collaborations. A lot of collaborations were launched, but there still seems to be a big gap between talking about collaboration, launching it, to building it up and sustaining it as a successful collaborative. And since you have been involved with so many collaboratives, impactful ones in the past, what do you think are the right ingredients for building a successful collaborative? And is this the way forward for the sector, keeping in mind the resource crunches, or just bringing in the what you talked about earlier, bringing in the collective together?
Yeah. No, so, and it's fantastic that I'm speaking to you today, Satyam, because today is the launch of our 6th collaborative, and it is called Grow. And we are talking about supporting 100 grassroots NGOs across the country together with collective funding. So it has come again post, after having watched a lot of the COVID But here I actually feel very, very much about this topic. Collaborations are not, and if we consider collaborations as pooled funding vehicles, we're going to be doing a disservice. I repeat the same philosophy that I was talking about when we were speaking of women and gender. See, collaboration for whom and for what is more important than who puts money in it. While we have to begin with saying that, or we have to give the focus to funders and focus to NGOs and everything, but the fact is that the work of the grassroots has to be recognized, and they have to become active participants when we design for things like that. So again, it goes back to the first answer that I gave you, that all our solutions have to be designed keeping in mind those who are facing the problems, and not be poured in as something great that is happening from the. And when collaborations suffer in a few months from where they begin, it is because we've all come together with good intentions. We've come together with significant resources, but we've come together without having the main participant in the room. We've not checked in, we've not understood, and we've designed for them and not with them. And I think that becomes the primary reason why many things fail, right? Because आप implementation में you realize कि जो हम इतना मेहनत कर रहे थे वो तो उनको चाहिए नहीं था, और वो जो जिसके लिए उनका पेन पॉइंट चल रहा है वो अभी there is we are not even able to talk about it because we didn't think that way. That is why collaborations, I think, don't take off beyond the point. We are in our 6th right now, 2 of which, like you said, we have designed, and 3rd we've designed now. But being part of these 6, we've realized that bringing the stakeholder, or being mindful of stakeholder requirements, is probably the make or break. And of course, then there are, of course, like-minded people have to come together. You have to put resources in structures and capacities. You have to understand the problem. I think more or less people are getting that right. But a lot of places we are not including stakeholder voices, and that's where things are going wrong. Are we having more collaborations? Yes. But do we need many more? I say yes, many, many more. India is seeing a problem like never before. We need to have solutions like never before. And the one-on-one model may work for some, but for big impact, we'll have to collaborate.
No, great point, Naghma, and completely again resonates. I mean, we were recently thinking of designing a marketplace focusing on impact evaluation. And I realized that how quickly we were speaking a language, a bunch of us were speaking a certain kind of language. And the moment we started talking to the stakeholders, our idea has transformed 360 degrees. It doesn't exist the way it started out. And actually that shows the power of talking to the stakeholders, because a lot of time I think the first fundamental mistake everyone makes, and I guess we were making too, is thinking what we think is right versus going to people who are actually going to consume it. So I mean, that definition of like going to people who actually need it doesn't, I mean, it occurs to you, but not at a level it should occur to you.
No, we assume we already get it. We assume we already get it because our intentions are not bad, right? Nobody's coming to disrupt. The intentions are not bad at all. And we assume because of our empathy that we understand. But honestly, I don't think in any ways we can empathize, but I don't think we can really understand what it takes to be standing out there and executing a program jiske KRAs aapne pehle se decide kar liye hai. And and being also very, very agile on the field because of the problems that emerge. So yes.
Right. No, absolutely. It is. It's like fundamentally assuming what people want without really asking them whether they want this or not, like a top-down approach, which technically definitely has to change. There's no doubt about that. No, thank you, Naghma. Naghma, what do you think? What do you think is the future of philanthropy now, in light of what has happened to the sector? Also, particularly talking about the regulations that are ever evolving and getting very, very restrictive in a country like India. And the need, as you said, probably this pandemic has put us back by a decade or two, if not more. How are we going to come out of this as philanthropy? I'm asking you more from a foundation's perspective.
Yes. And no, we have been very, very concerned about this. The fact is that for whatever reasons, regulations have become tighter than ever before. And the sector is reeling because there's not enough capacity to, one, comprehend a lot of organizations don't even comprehend the regulations that have come. And then there is this host of webinars to understand ki hua kya hai. So then to follow it is the second thing, and it does reduce the funnel for them. It reduces the amount of money that's anyways available for them. I think going forward, like for Edelgive and personally for me, I see this playing out in a certain way. One is that if philanthropy has to step up, we are already late, we have to step up now. There has been a huge wealth transfer from the poor to the rich. 230 million Indians have fallen below poverty line in the last 1 year, and that's not an insignificant number. And similarly, there are people who have gained because of the businesses they run and how they've been strategically placed. I think philanthropy needs a big steroidal injection. There needs to be more. There is a lot, but India has the capacity to give more. Second is, we don't need to be billionaires. We have to be the common man that actually starts. It's something that I really admire about as a whole, where there is a culture of giving, that even if you do earn $200, you'll keep aside $5 as a culture. I think we have to keep aside every month, because the need is just high, and keeping it aside a little bit every month is not a bad idea. So whether we are billionaires or whether we are middle class people, there is something that we have to keep out. The second thing with philanthropy we'll have to do is also step back and really plan. Just like people plan wealth, people plan income. There should be a philanthropy planning, because some things need urgent interventions, but something needs long-term patience. And that is where I was saying philanthropy matters most. While the governments take care of our basic, facilities and needs, holding them accountable, yes, but philanthropy will have to go the long haul in supporting structures that need time to be, built, supporting ideas that are risky but may take off very, very well. So the long term will have to be something that whoever is capable of will have to start investing in, because the disruption will need a long-term solution for sure. So philanthropy planning, increased giving by all, very important. But again, philanthropy is an enabler. It is not the solution. So accountability is something that I keep repeating again and again. All of us are accountable to ourselves and to those who we have elected and selected around us. And therefore grow. If you see the way grow, you will see it. It all comes down to long term. We're investing in 100 NGOs. These 100 NGOs we're going to take a bet that they are going to work for the future that India needs. And the whole plan has been crafted keeping the long term in mind.
No, thank you, Naghma. I mean, completely agree with you. Yesterday, I was talking to a friend who was trying to explain why the markets are going up. And he was saying, and I said, I really don't understand the economic outlook of this country and why the markets are going up, as a layman. And he, being like a stock market person, was, to a layman, he said, it's not about institutional investments, it's about retail investments. And that has been just going up.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about that similar concept. I started thinking that if the retail investors can decide to enter the stock market when they shouldn't, probably because it doesn't make economic sense from the outlook lens, probably the similar notion of retail investors or retail giving should grow up at scale, because India has like significant number of people, and like you rightly said, it's not about the amount you give, it's about the culture of giving.
Yes.
So if you can even put aside 1 to 5% of your income on a monthly basis, that's a significant amount of money. I mean, yesterday, Arvind Kejriwal was talking about the ration they are going to give to 72 crore people in Delhi. And when he mentioned that, they are just going to give 4 kgs of wheat and 2 kgs of rice for a family to live for 2 months. And I just thought about it. I was like, that's nothing when it comes to, if you really start thinking from a financial terms, for a family to live for 2 months. How many people would just step out and spend that money probably in a day or in a meal? If people had this concept of taking care of one family, for every 72 crore people, there are other 72 crore taking care of them, the 101 matching. Probably there is no such platform, but it's not difficult if you have to take care of one family for 2 months.
Absolutely.
But we also get lost in giving by seeing so many places and so many institutions to give to, that I'm assuming with too many choices, you might not end up doing anything. It's like COVID relief.
That's true, but I think I still think that we don't give as much as we can, and all are not giving.
Right.
And like you said, I'm not talking about the billionaires, and there is a lot to be said about that. They are also giving, but I think giving as per one can, but then giving at least something. I mean, it has to begin from that. That itself changes things. And also, now that we're beginning to talk about responsibility, even the people who are responsible for us, in the first wave, I would say that people are very willing to give to charity, but have not paid their maids for the whole month because she's not come to work. I think there, the concept of charity and rightful dignified labor is very messed up, right? I mean, would you give dignity or would you give charity? If you have only one place to give. And in that sense, I think we all need to sit back and really think, why are we giving? Are we giving to feel good, or are we giving to help someone? And if helping someone is there, then dignified help is very, very important. So would that be by paying someone who deserves to be paid, or by charity? It's not as simple as just uncoding and doing this, but I think charity needs to be viewed seriously by all of us as something that we owe as people who are born and raised in a society that took care of us in many ways. And that we are enabled, we need to take care of them again. And if we start looking at it from a perspective of responsibility instead of being benevolent and good, I think a lot of course correction happens at that point and the volume stop mattering.
Right. Absolutely agree with you, Naghma. You've already talked about the Grow Fund, but I would still like to ask you a question, which is how is EdelGive thinking of like supporting organizations who are struggling with this impact of the pandemic? And one more question around Grow Fund. You mentioned 100 organizations will be supported. Have you already picked these 100 organizations? Is it going to be an open call? Is it going to anything you can share?
Yeah. So first, what we're already doing, we have actually looked at it from short and medium term and long term. And in the short and medium term, organizations that we know that we can, completely back in terms of, due diligence work and everything, we have them already signed up, and we are actively connecting them to funders who are seeking the same. And Satyam, the thing about EdelGive is we connect those organizations that are more difficult to find and which will also take more time to get to funders. So the first wave we were doing this, the second wave we are also doing this, completely dependent on the need of the geography. But the long term is grow, and where we are basically saying that we have to mind and we have to take care of the structures that support these people, everything from paying their salaries to paying their rents to just being able to breathe and say, okay, we have everything operational. Now let's look at fundraising, and now let's look at what we can do as in terms of adapting to solutions. All the 100 will be, we will actually open an application. We will source them from, it's not going to be only those who we know. In fact, we are so keen that the message spreads that we want to do it in 4 phases, which is north, south, east, west, so that we have equal representation from all parts of the country. Again, the intention is that it's not just a metro-centric fund. It is something that is encouraging people from the back and beyond to really write in and and apply. And so it's going to be a sector agnostic fund. Is going to be a fund that is seeking applications from everywhere. We're going to just try to keep triggers so that no sector gets overwhelming presence there. And we want to do this with people being participating in it. There will be many more beyond EdelGive who will participate in different processes. Again, it's basically a culmination of everything that we thought should be done, and we are trying. This is an attempt to do that. We will get some things wrong, but I'm hoping that people who are coming in to support us, our partners, our we've learned from, are going to guide us into ensuring we pull this one off really well. And this attempt is really something that we hope in the future is emulated by us as well as by more, because we do need oxygen, not the one that's now, but we do need support for all these organizations across the country. So that's really what Grow is about, and it's just launched today, and we are very, very excited about it.
So congratulations, Naghma. It's definitely the need of the hour. And like you said, I mean, even when you think about a country like India, it's amazing that we can go ahead and support. You are thinking of going ahead and supporting 100 organizations. But in the scheme of things, we need to definitely think of scaling this up.
Yeah.
Probably the one who needs the maximum support, because the next 1 year is going to be very, very harsh.
Yeah.
Probably no one was prepared for this coming year. we were sort of mentally prepared for the last one over the period of time. But this one has come as a surprise, just like the cyclone right now. First the COVID pandemic and then the cyclone. Naghma, I would like to come to my last question, which is, I think there's a lot of anxiety amongst the young people right now, everywhere. I don't think it's just a function of social sector. Anyone who's graduated last year, graduating this year, or anyone who's new in the world of work. I mean, if you have to give advice to young people looking at social sector in 2021, what that would be, whether they should take it or not, what advice would you give to any young person thinking about making a difference in society?
Yeah, I have two young persons in my own home. So I will tell you, one is it's yeah, you do feel bad. It's probably the worst time to be either graduating or to be young and watching the future that you thought will unravel completely be taken away. So in that sense, a planned, structured future is now suddenly looking blank, right?
Right.
My advice would be that I mean, and as somebody who's halfway on the other side, I can safely say that yes, it's horrible, and in no ways can it be that be diluted by words, to make people feel good. But finally, these 2 years are going to be incredibly testing times. It's a time when we will have to, just be prepared for a future that none of us can promise. So focus on skill building, refining oneself for what is the future. Secondly, if one really cares, then this is actually the time to enter the sector. It will give low returns. It will it will hurt. It will be heartbreaking at times, but really now, from now onwards, is where we'll have to pick up the pieces and build for a future, hopefully being mindful of the past mistakes that we've made. So for young people who ever thought that the development sector is where I want to be, I would say, yes, this is absolutely the time to enter, because this is when people are also needed. We need more young people here. But yes, it is also the time when across board in all sectors, remunerations have suffered, funding has suffered. So yes, there has to be also a preparedness that if this is your dream, then it's just become like 2 times harder. But yes, at the end of the line, I hope it will just be worth people's while. And in the interim, I think people should just be either taking care of themselves, their own mental health, or building for whatever they would like to be in the future. Just get more skills for themselves. But I hope that answers the question.